This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Tuesday, March 18th of 2025, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will be joined by Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net for our closing markets. But first, it is my conversation with Liam Vincent of BASF as we preview the 2025 growing season. Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Liam Vincent with BASF. We are at the Agribusiness Showcase in Altoona. Liam, thanks so much for taking the time to join me here today. I know you were involved in a panel discussion earlier today. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a panel on resistance weed management strategies, and we were joined by Dr. Wes Everman from Iowa State University, the new extension weed specialist, and Adam Striegel from Bayer Crop Science, a technical development rep for Western Iowa. And really the focus on it was today just about, the fact that resistance isn't going away. It's becoming a problem that's just more prominent and prevalent. And so it's all about, from our perspectives with products that we're selling, looking at managing them well and stewarding them well. And, from a BASF perspective, we've had Liberty and we're introducing Liberty Ultra herbicide in 2025. And for us, managing resistant weeds or preserving these products is about stewarding them correctly. And for us, that comes back to what we call the START guidelines with Liberty Ultra. And it's number one is weed size. We need to be applying those applications being made on less than 3-inch weeds. We want timing to be on everyone's mind, spraying sort of during bankers' hours. The importance of AMS just cannot be understated. It's something that just needs to be in the tank with glufosinate to get the optimal efficacy out of that product. Residuals being super important to the conversation as far as trying to change people's mindsets as far as how they think about post-emergence chemistries. How can we develop residual programs or put out robust pre-herbicides like Zidua Pro that have multiple modes of action, kind of act at different times as weeds are germinating, that set up the crop for success, give it a good clean start. But then, as the residuality of that Zidua Pro begins to subside and weeds break, the benefit of having that in there is, we've eliminated a lot of the weeds that post-emergence chemistry from Liberty or Liberty Ultra that it would face. And so we're subjecting hundreds of thousands of fewer weed species or weed seeds to our post-emergence chemistries. And so doing that really will delay resistance and keep tools around. And the last part of that acronym of START is called 20 in tips. So we really are encouraging folks to get out on 20 GPA. Making sure that since Liberty or Liberty Ultra is a contact herbicide, coverage is really key. So getting that GPA up to 20 and also making sure that we have the right tips on there, that we're achieving a droplet spectrum that delivers medium to coarse droplets. That's going to be really important to optimize the efficacy. And so putting all of those pieces I just mentioned into your program and controlling the controllables is going to be really critical for extending the life of our post-emergence chemistries.
So Liam, kind of just to simplify things then, yes, we have this technology, these tools that we can use for these resistant weeds, but at the end of the day as well, it comes down to using those management practices properly. That's right. To make everything as effective as possible. That's right. Yep.
So another thing that we discussed during the panel was about tank mixtures. That was highlighted by Dr. Everman and myself. As far as, when we start to think about soybeans, a really prevalent trait platform that's out there is the Enlist E3 soybean that's got glufosinate, 2,4-D, and glyphosate enabled. And so what we're doing, and what we're talking from a BASF perspective, is making sure that we're promoting both as best. And that meaning that in a tank mix, you're including Liberty or Liberty Ultra plus Enlist 1. And I think we showed some data from the University of Wisconsin that showed significant improvement upon of the tank mix compared to either one of those herbicides alone. And again, it's adding more to the tank to be conservative and to preserve both of those tools in the long run.
If you had a tank mix question as an individual farmer, would you be able to come to BASF and ask a technical field service representative to say, hey, this is the order, or what is the order I need to tank mix? And then are these compatible? Those kind of questions. Can you come to a BASF rep and ask those questions?
Yep, absolutely. Those are things that our sales team or technical service reps would be able to answer. Yep.
And then, Liam, as you think about 2025, are there any unique challenges you can think about as we go into this year and maybe something farmers should be thinking about?
It's always tough to see prices where they're at right now, and in corn and soybeans, and in that repressed economy, folks look at ways to cut things, and from our perspective, we're really asking folks to look hard at keeping their herbicide budget intact from what they've done in years past, because again, resistant weeds are not going away. It's becoming more prevalent, and if we don't keep our practices in place and be good stewards of these technologies, we'll spend more in the long run in order to control weeds.
And that is kind of been a message almost throughout the industry that I've heard a lot, is that, yes, it may look like you're saving money on paper, but as the season actually plays out and in practice, that's probably not going to be the case.
Absolutely. And one thing I'd like to say on that is, how long do we want these tools to be effective? And we control that. Right. We control how long we want those to be effective by, how we set up our post-emergence applications for success with robust pre's, and how we make those applications, those post-emergence applications. We need to do everything we can to optimize those.
Liam Vincent with BASF, my guest here today. Liam, is there anything else you'd like to let our Iowa growers, our Iowa listeners know about when it comes to this upcoming growing season, or just anything you're excited about?
Yeah, absolutely. So Certain herbicide is another one that we're really excited to be launching as part of as the BASF team. We had a pretty big demo program go out in 2024, giving a lot of growers a chance to experience what Certain can offer as far as flexibility, residual endurance. Being able to provide 8 weeks of water hemp control is really critical in corn. And a unique chemistry combo where we've taken the first solid encapsulated pre and put that out there just as something that brings a new mode of action into the corn space.
He is Liam Vincent with BASF, my guest at the Agribiz Showcase in Altoona. Liam, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it, and have a great rest of the show.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you to Liam Vincent of BASF for joining today's show. It is time now for the closing markets, and I will be joined by Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. But first, a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
You're watching Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and it is time now for Closing Markets with Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. Ross, how did we trade in the grains here today?
It was a fairly quiet day of trade across most of the commodity markets, but nearby May corn was 2 1/4 lower today, settling at 458 3/4. December corn was up 1/4 penny at 454 1/4. Over in the soybean market, soybeans were anywhere from basically 3 to 4 cents lower. May beans closed 2 3/4 lower at 10.12 3/4, and the November contract was 3 cents lower at 10.15 1/2. Over in the wheat market, Chicago wheat was 2 to 3 cents lower, with May wheat 3.5 cents lower, and Kansas City wheat was a penny to 2 cents higher. So it was really a quiet day of trade.
And with those wheat markets, Ross, what have we seen with the price movement here recently and some of those concerns about the wheat and I guess what that's doing to the price?
Yeah, wheat started the week off yesterday on a strong note. Chicago wheat was 10 to 12 cents higher. The Kansas City contract was, started the week nearly 20 cents higher. And there's been some weather concerns that have been driving the wheat market. But one interesting thing to keep in mind here is Trump and Putin had a lengthy conversation here today discussing the Russia-Ukraine war, and there was a headline about Russia's going to limit strikes and not be going after maybe Ukraine's energy, I believe is what I've seen here. But there's it was, I would say, a major step in this Russia-Ukraine war towards getting a step towards peace. And it seems to be the first time since that the war started that Putin is actively engaging with a U.S. leader and looking towards actually talking about peace. So that could potentially be a headwind. I think when they started talking about these peace talks here late this morning, I think that's why you saw Chicago wheat actually give up the gains that it did. It wasn't a terrible sell-off by any means, but we at one point we were trading 8-9 cents higher in Chicago wheat, Kansas City wheat. It was trading almost 10 cents higher. And so we did, I think that's why we saw the wheat market reverse off of those highs here today and close, lower in the Chicago contract. So it'll be something to keep watching moving forward.
On the other side of the ag markets, was it as quiet of a day in the livestock trade with the cattle and hogs?
Hogs had more of an exciting day, having triple-digit losses, and actually for once the live cattle and the feeder cattle markets they were pretty quiet, and which hasn't been the norm given the volatility that we've seen in those markets as they've been just rallying aggressively. But live cattle, the nearby April contract was 35 cents higher. The back months were essentially unchanged, 15 cents lower. Over in the feeder cattle market, March and April feeders closed 35 cents higher. The back months were anywhere from 5 to 20 cents lower. That's one of the quietest trading days that we've seen in quite some time for the cattle markets. Live cattle and feeders both continue to be driven by their respective extremely strong cash markets that they're seeing. Live cattle saw cash trade jump, $4 to $5 higher last week. We got back up to 205 live for fat cattle. The feeder cattle market, the index continues to charge higher as cash feeders have just been screaming. Yesterday's index was around 283 and a quarter. And you've got March and April feeder cattle basically trading between 284.50 to 285 today is where they settled. So the cash markets remain the largest driver for these markets. We know cattle have a fundamentally bullish story, which is why we're at the levels that we are. But continuing to see, we've seen some pullbacks, but then when you see the cash markets just continue to stay as strong and resilient as they have and bounce back and continue charging higher, that's what really it remains the largest driver of this market. Now, the flip side is we're at unprecedented levels. These are all-time high prices that we're at for cash fats, cash feeders. The feeder cattle contracts continue to make new contract highs by the day. Over in live cattle, the April contract's the only one that hasn't been making new contract highs, but I think that just that reinforces the need to at least have a floor underneath of this market, just given the levels that we're sitting at. Over in the hog market, hogs started the week off yesterday on an extremely strong note with sharp triple-digit gains, and then today April hogs closed 47 cents lower. The June contract was $1.80 lower. They did close over $1 off of their lows from the early morning lows, but when you look at the June contract, June hogs, today's low was right at the 200-day moving average, which was at 96.02, and that's right where the 200 days at. They have been finding solid support down there. I think that's a big level to watch here moving forward for the hog market. Just keep your eye on that 200-day moving average.
Ross, I know you and the team at agmarket.net have a lot of resources and marketing information. How can our viewers get in touch to find out more?
You can reach me at our office here in Anthony. Our number is 712-373-3276, or you can visit agmarket.net to find any of the ag market brokers.
He is Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net. Ross, thanks so much for the time here today. Always appreciate it, and we'll speak again soon.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you to Ross Baldwin of agmarket.net for the closing markets here today. Let's take a look at the numbers and how the markets closed, and we can find that information anytime under the markets tab of our website at iowaagnet.com.
May corn closes down 2 1/4 at 458 3/4. May soybeans down 2 3/4 at 1012 3/4. May soybean meal down 440 at 299.90. May soybean oil up 44 cents at 42.54. Chicago wheat down 3 1/2 at 565 even. Minneapolis wheat down a penny at 6.14 even. Kansas City hard red wheat up 3/4 cent at 6.06 1/4. May oats down 3 cents at 3.66 even. On the Merc, April live cattle up 35 cents at 205.37. April feeder cattle up 35 cents at 284.55. April lean hogs down 47 cents at 87.60. April pork cutout unchanged at 97.22. Class 3 milk down 14 cents at 17.02.
That wraps up closing markets for today's show and brings us to the end of this episode. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And you can check out our morning, midday, and closing market podcast wherever you find your favorite podcast at Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Podbean. And that's also where you can find our daily episodes of our Iowa Ag Matters podcast. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.